Now, budget overruns will again emerge as the biggest threat to stabilizing the economy next year. That's one informed economist, Professor Baah Boateng. This comes on the back of projections by some analysts and of challenging times for Akufo-Addo's next term in office beginning January. Now, speaking to Joy Business, Professor Baah Boateng maintained that government may be able to manage the situation.
What I normally find is that after every election, demands from institutions, from economic agents go down. But during election year, everybody wants to have his pound of flesh. And in that regard, government is compelled to listen and give in to some of these requests. But after the election, you realize that the government tend to have some kind of breathing space and be able to withstand some of these pressures. So I expect that in 2002, the next year and for the next 2 years, government had that kind of bargaining strength than those who are going to demand. And that will not be much of that problem. So I think the kind of demand that we are going to have next year will not be as much as what we have had this year. So it will not be much of a challenge, but the fiscal deficit will still be a problem. I'm still looking at growth, even though we have recovered quite strongly. And I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, when I looked at it, I thought we will not be affected so much, and eventually we will kind of recover. And
joining me to discuss this a bit more is Dr. Williams Kwesi-Pepra, who is Head of Finance at the Valley View University. Thanks for your time tonight. Do you agree with Professor Baah Boateng's assessment?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I think Prof has given his insights, and it's true that after elections, government may have a slowdown in his planning, financial planning. We know that most of the policies for government will not deviate. If you look at the NPP's manifesto, they have a stable plan that they have to follow. Though we must admit that there are some financial challenges that the NPP government is going to face when it comes to area of education, roads, the energy sector levy debt, and the banking sector cleanup is going to come up. So government must be disciplined, and so when they're able to discipline, they will be able to work and then reduce the deficit. Currently, the current account deficit is above 5%, which is an issue. So government will be working towards it to reduce it, and then in that effect, it will reduce the overruns of budget. So I'm expecting that, as he is projecting, within the first 2 years, government will have a breathing space. I'm not expecting the government to start any major development or policy apart from what they have laid down in their manifesto.
Well, the thing with budget overruns is nothing really strange to us. We keep hearing about it, and it keeps happening. And then there's always the talk about fiscal prudence and all of that. It looks like it's a challenge that we can't fix anytime soon. Mostly
from our side of the world, because we don't have a national plan that we follow, it keeps coming. After every 4 years or after elections, this thing comes up. So it's something that we have to deal with, and the plan that the government will put in place will help us to be able to overcome it. We need to, as a country, we need to be disciplined, and we need to follow as noted. If we have the national agenda that we are all following, we know where we are going, and when it's in that case, we'll be able to achieve a reduced budget deficit. But as it stands now, during election year, because of demands and pressures on government, we always experience the budget overrun.
I'm just curious. I'm going to put you in the shoes of government. What kind of agenda would you pursue in order not to overrun your budget?
So what government needs to do first is to look at how to raise revenue. because for most of the policies, we know the expenditure lines. But the most important is where government is going to look at to raise revenues. I've been advocating for government to use most of the digital platforms to raise revenue. Yesterday, it was announced that mobile money usage increased by more than 51%. That is last year to this year, though we are in COVID. So government must focus on using all the digital platforms to be able to raise revenue. And is using the indirect form to get that. And when government is able to do that, it will reduce the deficit that we are facing.
All right.
So if I were to, I'll focus on using digitization to reduce, to bring in more revenue.